There are moments in Formula One that strip everything down to its rawest essence: emotion, doubt, vulnerability, and remind us that even the greatest drivers in history are human. Hungary, 2025, delivered one of those moments. The qualifying session should have been just another chapter in a complex but predictable narrative: teams battling setups, margins dictated by tire windows, and pole position snatched by whoever nailed the final lap. But when the session ended, headlines didn't center around pole sitter Charles Leclerc or McLaren's collapse. They focused squarely on Lewis Hamilton, not because of what he achieved, but because of what he said. "It's me every time," he told reporters. "You've seen there's no problem with the car? You've seen the cars on pole. So, we probably need to change driver." That sentence hit like a thunderclap across the paddock. In a sport where accountability is a tightrope and egos are protected like priceless engines, Hamilton's world champion offered himself up for criticism without hesitation. It was jarring, painfully honest, and deeply revealing. This wasn't just a throwaway comment. It was the culmination of a brutal, frustrating weekend. While Leclerc managed to tame the car under shifting conditions and unexpected wind patterns, Hamilton failed to reach Q3, qualifying a painful 12th, and that disparitied two teammates in the same machinery. One celebrating, the other a reaction that felt bigger than just Hungary. It touched something deeper. Hamilton, by every statistical and historic measure, is a legend. Yet here he was, suggesting he might not be up to the task. That Ferrari, of all teams, might need someone else. The truth. He wasn't being literal, but emotionally, he meant every word. That's what makes it so significant. To understand the weight of Hamilton's words, we need to look at the context and how Formula One's modern pressure cooker operates. In the past, drivers had time to breathe after a session before facing cameras. They could reflect, consult with engineers, digest what happened, but today's media machine demands instant access. Drivers step out of the car and immediately face a barrage of questions. And when you're emotionally raw, disappointed, and furious with yourself, words tend to slip past the filter. That's exactly what happened here. Hamilton had just exited a Ferrari that should have been in contention. He had watched his teammate take pole in identical machinery. The disappointment wasn't just fresh, it was suffocating. It reminded many of his reaction in Qatar last season, when, after another difficult Saturday, he muttered, "I'm not fast anymore." It's a recurring theme. Hamilton doesn't blame the car or the team. He blames himself. That level of ownership is rare in a sport full of but it also makes him his harshest critic. And that can be a double-edged sword. Because when you constantly shoulder the blame, when you refuse to entertain the idea that external factors might be at play, it can erode your confidence fast. Yet even in that emotional spiral, Hamilton showed his class. He didn't direct anger toward Leclerc or the team. In fact, the only moment of light in his post-session comments was when he praised Ferrari for their progress and congratulated Leclerc on a job well done. That's who Hamilton is: honest, proud, but never bitter. So, was it really as bad as it looked? Strip away the emotion and the dramatic quotes, and what happened on track was far more nuanced. Hamilton missed Q3 by just 0.015 seconds. That's 15 thousandths of a second. A slight wobble in a corner, a touch of oversteer, a hair too late on the throttle, it could be any of those things. But when margins are that tight, failure hits harder, especially when your teammate capitalizes and puts the same car on pole. Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur was quick to defend Hamilton. He explained that Q2 wasn't well executed as a team, not because of Lewis's pace, but because of poor timing and tire prep. As the track cooled rapidly by nearly 10 degrees in the final moments, tire temperatures plummeted. Hamilton's outlap didn't generate enough heat, meaning he started his flying lap on rubber that had already fallen outside its optimal performance window. The result? Grip disappeared when he needed it most. Leclerc, on the other hand, figured this out. He radioed the team with a clear directive: "Focus, please, on one thing, which is to go out as soon as possible." He didn't want clean air. He didn't care about traffic. He wanted tire temperature. That's what mattered. And that insight, built from practice runs and Friday feedback, paid off. He launched at just the right time, hit the first two sectors, faster than the McLarens, and nailed pole. It wasn't just speed, it was strategic execution. But that contrast, while impressive, made Hamilton's result sting even more, because it showed what was possible, what could have been. Meanwhile, the rest of the grid was thrown into chaos. Red Bull, once seemingly invincible, looked ordinary. Max Verstappen qualified 8th, his worst starting position of the year, and didn't even appear in the conversation for pole. That wasn't just unusual, it was alarming. Verstappen was 3.5 tenths off the fastest time, which, in a normal session, would put him comfortably in the top 4. But Hungary wasn't normal. The field spread was razor thin, and those 3 tenths dropped him behind both Aston Martins and even an Alfa Romeo. More importantly, Red Bull had no answer for it. Verstappen said the car wasn't responding to changes, and nothing they wings, ride height, balance, tweaks made a difference. Pure watch. Red Bull's technical chief admitted as much. They didn't know what was wrong. They just knew the grip wasn't there. McLaren wasn't spared either. They looked unbeatable through practice and early qualifying. The medium-speed characteristics of the Hungarian played perfectly into their strengths. But right before Q3, the wind direction shifted 90 degrees. Suddenly, the McLaren became twitchy, unstable. Drivers lost confidence, lap times fell. Team principal Andrea Stella estimated the wind change alone cost them 4/10. Combine that with a car that's still sensitive in dirty air, and McLaren's front row lockout dissolved instantly. It was, in short, a weekend where control was a myth and timing, intuition, and adaptability made the difference. All of this Hamilton's self-doubt, Ferrari's execution, McLaren's collapse, Red Bull's confusion paints a picture of a sport in flux. Formula One has always been about precision, but what Hungary revealed is that instinct and timing still matter just as much as raw pace. The smallest decisions when to leave the garage, how much heat is in the tire, which sector to push hardest, swing a session, and the mental toll it takes on the drivers is immense. For someone like Lewis Hamilton, who's spent over a decade at the sharp end of the grid, missing Q3 by a whisper while your teammate takes pole isn't just existential. He's not worried about points. He's questioning legacy, identity, purpose, and yet, that honesty, that vulnerability, is exactly what makes him compelling. He's not fading quietly. He's fighting, even when the fight is with himself. As for Ferrari, this weekend proved they're not just inching forward. They're learning, adapting, evolving. Leclerc's pole wasn't just a fluke of timing. It was earned through sharp thinking and clear communication, and it showed that, under pressure, this team can still outmaneuver giants like Red Bull and McLaren. But what happens next? Does Hamilton bounce back? Does Red Bull figure out their grip mystery? Can McLaren stop the yo-yo of form? These aren't just technical questions, they're human ones. Because at the heart of this sport, beyond the data and downforce, are people struggling, striving, and still daring to believe in comebacks. If this story hit you the way it hit us, if you felt the weight behind Hamilton's words and the pressure pulsing through every lap, then join the conversation. Subscribe, drop a comment, and tell us what you think. Is Hamilton spiraling, or is this just the prelude to something extraordinary?